All right, today we are diving deep into the anatomy of a major military campaign, the fictional Operation Sindoor. We're going to look at the strategy, the incredible high-tech weapons involved, and the powerful message it sent across the region. So let's get right into it.
So this is how Operation Sindoor was officially described when it kicked off in May 2025. You hear those words, right? Focused, measured, non-escalatory. It sounds surgical, controlled, almost clinical, like a mission designed to be very limited to avoid a bigger war. But the event that triggered this whole thing, well, it was anything but.
It all started with this number, 26. That's the number of civilians who were killed in the Pahalgam terror attack in April 2025. This was the human tragedy that set the wheels of a massive, high-tech military response into motion. So how did we get from a brutal terror attack to a focused military operation?
At its heart, this entire operation was a direct response. The goal was to send a message that was loud, clear, and absolutely undeniable to the groups India believed were responsible.
Here's the timeline of how it all went down. In April 2025, the attack happens. Pretty quickly, intelligence fingers three specific groups: Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and Hizbul Mujahideen. And then, just 1 month later, in May, Operation Sindoor is officially a go, with a very specific playbook. Now, what's really important here is that last point. The initial plan was totally laser-focused on counter-terrorism. The idea was to hit terrorist infrastructure, their camps, their launch pads, and, this is the key part, to explicitly avoid a direct fight with the Pakistani military. That was crucial to that whole non-escalatory idea. And make no mistake, this wasn't just an Air Force show. The whole operation was designed as a display of tri-services synergy. You had the Indian Army, the Air Force, and the Navy all working together. It was meant to be a showcase of a unified, comprehensive military machine. But, as they say, no plan survives contact with the enemy. And this brings us to the moment everything changed. This is the critical turning point where that initial limited mission was forced to become something much bigger.
So after India's first wave of strikes on the terror camps, Pakistan hit back. And they didn't just send a strongly worded letter. They responded with force, launching their own drone attacks, missile strikes, and ramping up shelling across the border. That one move completely changed the game.
And India's response to that was guided by a doctrine called the principle of equal intensity. So what does that actually mean? It's pretty straightforward. If you attack us with missiles, we're going to respond with missiles. If you attack us in the air, we'll hit you back in the air. Force for force, domain for domain. The limited counter-terror operation, yeah, that was over.
And this slide just perfectly illustrates that massive shift. On the left, you have the initial plan, terrorist infrastructure only. Then look at the right. After the retaliation, the target list suddenly includes Pakistani military sites and, crucially, their Air Force bases. The gloves were completely off.
So how did India actually pull off this much bigger, much more complex mission? Well, the answer lies in its arsenal of high-tech weaponry. This is where some of the most advanced systems in the inventory were put to use.
The Indian Air Force, flying jets like the Rafale and Su-30 MKI, really brought four key tools to this fight. Long-range cruise missiles for those deep targets, precision bombs for fortified bunkers, super-fast supersonic missiles for high-speed strikes, and, of course, the increasingly common kamikaze drones.
Let's break that down a bit. The SCALP cruise missile, with a range of almost 500 kilometers, was the weapon of choice for hitting those really important, hardened targets deep inside enemy territory. For closer targets like bunkers, they used the Hammer precision-guided bombs. And during that retaliatory phase, they unleashed the famous BrahMos supersonic cruise missile. This thing travels at nearly 3 times the speed of sound. It was the perfect tool to send a very fast, very loud message to Pakistani military bases. The operation also used these things, loitering munitions, which everyone pretty much just calls kamikaze drones. And they are fascinating pieces of tech. You can launch one without a specific target, let it just circle or loiter over an area, acting as a scout, and then once it finds something, it just dives right into it, becoming the weapon itself. It's like a spy and a missile all rolled into one.
And hey, remember that tri-services synergy we talked about? The Indian Army was playing a huge role on the ground. They used their M777 howitzers to fire these incredible M982 Excalibur rounds. Now these aren't your grandpa's artillery shells. These things are GPS guided. They can hit a target 40 kilometers away with an accuracy of less than 2 meters. Just incredible for taking out those terror launch pads right on the border.
Okay, so you've got all this advanced technology. You've got this dramatic shift in strategy. What was the result? What did Operation Sindoor actually accomplish?
According to reports, the results were pretty significant. For starters, 9 terrorist camps were reportedly destroyed.
And in those camps, it was reported that over 100 terrorists were killed.
And then in that big retaliatory phase, 8 Pakistani air bases were targeted and damaged. This really showed the scale and the reach of India's counterstrike.
And we're not talking about small, dusty airfields here. Just look at this list. It includes major bases like Norkan and Rawalpindi and Mushaf in Sargoga. Targeting these key military hubs was meant to seriously disrupt Pakistan's ability to operate. So what did that damage actually look like? Well, media reports and analysis of satellite images showed huge craters on runways, major damage to aircraft hangars and admin buildings, and there were even claims that 5 fighter jets and a big early warning aircraft were destroyed right on the ground. So when you step back and look at the big picture, what's the real takeaway here? What was the lasting strategic point of this entire operation?
You know, ultimately, Operation Sindoor was presented as something much more than just a simple military retaliation. It was a strategic demonstration. It was India showing the world its new capability to conduct complex, long-range precision strikes. And it was a very clear enforcement of its zero-tolerance policy on terrorism. The message was simple: future attacks will be met with overwhelming and decisive force. Which really leaves us with one final, fascinating question. Does an operation like this, one that blends high-tech weaponry with an aggressive new doctrine like equal intensity, does this represent a new blueprint for how conflicts in this region are going to be fought in the 21st century? That is something I think strategists will be debating for years to come.